Hello, hello, welcome. It's Councilman Jesse Kurtz, and I'm here today with Councilman
Councilman
Bruce.
at large, Bruce Weeks.
Cool, cool. No, hey, it's a good opportunity to talk about what a lot of people are talking about these days, and that is why does no mean no, and what's this about with people over politics? What's this whole thing with a ballot question? So, Councilman, it's great to talk to you tonight, and I'm putting you on the spot. And what is this ballot question all about?
So the ballot question essentially is a referendum that was spurred from a local grassroots organization. They had over 2,000 signatures, and they simply want to accomplish a nonpartisan form of election in Atlantic City. Currently, we have an election system that has Democrats, Republicans, and Independents as party labels. And we have a June primary election and then a November general election when we have our elections. And what they want to do is strip away those party labels, remove outside interest and party bosses, and have a nonpartisan form of election that's all about Atlantic City in May. So there will no longer be a June primary or a November general if this yes vote passes. There will be a nonpartisan election, no Democrats, no Republicans, no independents. You would just run as yourself as a candidate, and you would run in May. It'd be mano a mano, everybody for themselves. It levels the playing field. So that's the yes vote. If it does not pass and there's a no vote, we will continue to have party bosses, and we'll continue to have Democrats versus Republicans, a very divisive system. And it leads to a lot of divisive politics. So that is essentially what this is. It would not remove the mayor. It would not remove any council people. So we will still have our ward council people, wards 1 through 6, and we would keep our 3 at-large council people. The only thing that changes is the form of election. It would be a nonpartisan form of election. There won't be any city manager. So it's simply not a change of government. It's a change of election.
And from what I understand, the vote, if it were to pass in this November ballot question, it would take effect as soon as next year. So next year we've got our ward spots. So myself and the other people that are in a ward council position, we're all up for election, and so it would mean, in one sense, I'd have to be running a little bit sooner, because instead of it being a June and November, it would be a May election. And the other thing that's I think is neat, that if this passes, the vote yes, that is, then we take our petitions out, whether it's one person or 100 people, and then all of our names go kind of in a proverbial hat, and then somebody picks a name. So I may end up in spot 1, but I could end up in spot 82, and it has nothing to do with how much I put time into schmoozing my party boss from Galloway, or people from Camden County or North Jersey or wherever they are. It's all the luck of the draw. We know a lot about that here in a casino town, right? It's just picking a number out. And one thing I like to point out, Bruce, is that it's not. I never say to anybody, "Hey, you vote yes, and you're going to do away with all outside influence." I mean, that's unrealistic.
Right.
But it's really a question of more and less. I don't know a single person in town that says, "Hey, you know what would help us here? We need more outside influence. We need more bosses that don't live in our town and that are further away from." No, we want less of that. We want to have less of that, and we'd like to have more of people that live in the neighborhood, that live in the town, determining who the folks are that get in a spot. And I'm not an independent, and neither are you. We belong to different political parties, but there's a lot of people that don't want to be part of a political party. They like voting, and they're independents. And sure, they have a choice in November, but a lot of that choice is already made in the June primary. And again, it's not that a party boss controls it 100%, but it's that a party boss outside of town has influence at all over something that affects us locally. So I think those are a couple of good points for people.
Definitely. And I think what you in your backdrop, people over politics, that's kind of the genesis of what you're saying. you know, instead of being, you know, beholden to a party county boss, you're going out to the people for the vote. You're going out to the people to get their approval as opposed to a party boss. I just think it makes the most sense for leveling the playing field. And, you know, again, returning that power of the elections back over to the people and not, you know, having someone dictate what you look at on the ballot. I think it's very important.
Yeah, and that's whenever, you know, we see these kind of recommendations about what could be done in order to strengthen our communities, to have a healthier political system here. Just about everybody has as one of their points that, you know, more people need to get involved.
Mhm.
And there are a lot of people that, I mean, face it, it's not us. We like politics, you know, we like government, we're involved, but there's a lot of people that it really turns them off, especially when you look at those things at the federal or state level. They get pretty divisive. You know, I look at it and, you know, what our police patrols should be or not be, what the schedule of repaving our roads, how we deal with flooding, how we fix our boardwalk, you know, how we deal with mental health, et cetera, et cetera. Like, these things have very little, if anything, to do with the conflict in Ukraine or what's happening in the Supreme Court. And so, like, why should our races be kind of tangled up in this very divisive, emotionally charged debate around federal and state issues?
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more.
So we obviously think that this ballot question is important, you know, but like, why should a citizen voter, you know, even care about this ballot question?
Well, in my opinion, they should care because you want to have control over who you put in office. And that's very important because, like you just said, you know, we make a lot of tough decisions on paving roads and quality of life issues that affect your day to day. Now, they may not have much to do with national policy, but they have a lot to do with your everyday life. And you want to have control over who has influence on those decisions. You don't want to, you know, have to go straight down a line and feel like there's one ideology from the federal level all the way down to Atlantic City, because we all know that's not true. There's so many different dynamics here in Atlantic City that are very different than Washington. So I think it's very important that people consider the yes vote. And you also have to consider, you know, are you happy with what you're getting, you know, as a product around you in your environment from the leadership that you have? Or do you think there are better quality candidates out there? Because I believe strongly that if you vote yes, you know, better candidates will want to run because they don't have to schmooze and, you know, be so sharp with their rhetoric because they're a part of a certain party. They can be independent thinkers and they can say, okay, this is what's going on in Atlantic City. These are the issues that I see, and these are my solutions to those problems. They don't have to worry about what the governor is saying and being on message with him, or what senator is saying, or for, you know, even the president in certain races. You can worry about what is going on in Atlantic City because that's what we're all most worried about first. So I think it's very important that we take a step back and realize that, you know, Atlantic City is very important. It's very important to this region. So, you know, we don't want someone from out of town dictating our elections or having that much control because it's just way too important. And we are the ones that live here. So we are the ones that should be making those decisions. So for me, it's about home field advantage because Atlantic City gives so much to the state, but you constantly see us get the short end of the stick. And it's because people owe people. Unfortunately, they owe people in the party higher up and they cut deals. And we want to eliminate or at least mitigate that from happening. And I think the Yes initiative is a great way of doing that.
Yeah, and we all do have that type of influence as a city that just about everybody in every region of the state knows of Atlantic City in one respect or another. So we're certainly going to have people interested in us who are powerful, who are influential, and our elected officials, you know, people like you and I are going to have to interact with those people as representatives of the city. But the irony in the political party system is that you have these folks that we ultimately need to go out and negotiate with or interact with, having this undue influence on who our negotiators are. So it's like your opponent, in this sense, picks who's on your team. And that's something that, like, no. we're going to have to deal with people who are in the state legislature, people who are in other regions of this state and really the region because of the importance of Atlantic City. But when it comes to like selecting who our elected officials are, who the members of our team are, that's a decision that should be either 100% or very greatly in the majority sense determined by our citizens, by the people who decide to look into candidates and people and select them. Something else that I think is very promising with this system that would take effect next year if people jump on board with vote yes, is that you often get a question like, what do you think of this national figure or this state figure? And then that's how these alliances get formed based on what people think of something that's far away. It's almost like, cheering on your favorite sports team on the TV as opposed to being on the field and playing yourself. Right. It would be great if the alliances were centered around people's philosophy about, I don't know, the crime in our city, about the number of zombies that wander the town, about like how traffic should be determined and how many lanes of traffic we should have. Like, these are the things that should form like coalitions and groups of people that disagree, not these things that are really like fantasy world. When you think about it, it's like arguing about what's in space with these politics up the food chain.
Exactly. I agree.
Now, I think you mentioned this before. People in some towns just kind of have their form of government or their mode of government, their way of voting, and that's that. In Atlantic City, we've had a recent attempt to change the actual form of government, not just get rid of political parties, which is what this does. I mean, this doesn't change the form. I thought you said that very well earlier. This just changes how much influence political parties are going to have in the form. But for people that say, isn't this the same thing that some out-of-town folks tried a few years ago? I mean, what do you say to them?
I'll just let them know it's completely different. For starters, that was, I believe, 2.5 years ago or 3 years ago. That was a change of government. This is a change of a form of election. So what they were trying to achieve was they wanted to remove the mayor position, and they wanted to remove ward council people. And they wanted to have a 5-person at-large commission form of government that had a city manager in place of a mayor who had complete absolute power of everything. And their goal was to have someone from out of town be that city manager. So a completely different form of government. With this particular referendum and initiative, this would keep the same form of government. So we would still have our ward system. We would still have our at-large 3 representation. We would still have our mayor. Our mayor would still be in place, and everyone that's incumbents now would still be in office until your point you made earlier. Their election will be earlier next year in 2023. It would be in May as opposed to June and November, but it will still be that same government system that we have in place. And that's very important because a lot of people have been saying, well, what about diversity? Well, when you look at it, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican in your ward, because that particular ward race is still going to attract and reflect ultimately who lives in that ward. So that demographic's not changing, right? It's just more people are probably going to want to run, if anything, because they don't have to be aligned with the party. So the diversity may actually increase if you want to think about it that way, because we have our city broken up in 6 districts. That helps keep diversity on council in and of itself. That structure won't change. So that's a great thing about the yes vote, is that you're still going to keep that diversity, but you're going to have more qualified candidates that want to run and be involved with the issues that you just spoke about local crime, about our roads and traffic lanes and the things that affect our everyday lives. We need more civic participation. And this is a great way, in my opinion, of achieving that. I know there are some studies out there that say that this form of elections will actually decrease turnout. However, again, Atlantic City is so unique. I actually think it will increase turnout because people are, like you said, they don't want to be divisive. They don't want to have to, follow an ideology from the federal level all the way down to the local level. They want to have options. They want to say, okay, you understand the issues. You're the best candidate. And I want to vote for you. And I want a bullet vote. I don't want to just vote for your team. I may like, Joe Schmo and Sally Mae, right? and they're not in the same team, but they're two qualified candidates that I have the options from. I think that's very important. And I just think it'll help move the city forward. My last point on that would be that there's a lot of outside influence in our elections, whether we want to admit it or not. I think that, I think you stated earlier, this will never completely get rid of that, but it will help mitigate it. And it will help, us be able to control our elections more and not be infiltrated with all these dollars from the, federal level or the higher up state level, because they want to all win Atlantic City. Atlantic City is a huge voting base for them. So they pump a lot of money into it. So you see a lot of candidates on the local level taking advantage of that. And if you're a great candidate, but you're not in that party line, you almost have no shot at winning. And that's not fair. The yes vote simply levels that playing field, in my opinion.
And they have, the party system. Some of the people have said, well, there's a local committee and they're elected by local people. Isn't that what you're talking about? And what I think a lot of people don't realize is that your local municipal committee, whether it be Democratic or Republican, ultimately just makes a suggestion. They get together, they caucus, and then they select candidates for a line. But the way that the party system works in these partisan elections is that it's a suggestion. All the power is vested, not even in the entire county committee structure. It's literally in one person, the chair. And so you have one person that, even if they did live in Atlantic City, which they don't, for neither party, they don't live in Atlantic City. Like, how is that beneficial to variety, diversity of opinion, diversity of persons getting in, when ultimately it comes down to how much you can get in the good graces of a single person? Like, that doesn't sound like representative democracy to me. That doesn't sound like representing people's rights. That sounds like a system that enables one person to be on a power trip. And I don't know why any ordinary, hardworking citizen in Atlantic City would want to defend that. It's not a system worth defending.
Yeah, and to your point, there's been a recent decision where the Democratic Party on the local level had, 42 elected people be overruled by a county party chairman. They didn't agree, who didn't agree with their decision. And these people were duly elected and put the work in. And then with a snap of a finger, he went a different direction because he could. And I think that's very, very scary, that you can have someone with that much concentrated power dictate who ultimately could end up winning an election when you had 42 people say otherwise, and then just one person can just veto everything. I think that's very not good for our government. And we need to be moving forward with civic engagement, and that kind of, like you said, strips us of that right, unfortunately. And I think that system needs to go.
And to the diversity point that you were talking about, there is an irony that the county chairman or a political party or either party would take credit for the movement of people into Atlantic City. Like, Atlantic City is one of the most multicultural cities in the entire state. We are home to 2 of the top 5 most diverse census tracts in the state. A political party didn't do that. The movement of people, if anything, the cultural and ethnic benevolent associations, in other words, the groups that help out people when they're coming to this country and provide support, they're the ones that deserve credit for why we ultimately have the diversity in representation that we have here. So it was incredibly disingenuous to say, all right, if you get rid of political parties, all of a sudden there will be no multicultural representation. It's like, I didn't know that this referendum had that kind of power. It's ridiculous.
It's going to be the great migration all over again, because we don't have political parties. It's just absurd. I mean, it's just, their tactics and their ways have just been, it's just, I can't even explain how bad they've been in defense of this yes vote. I've even seen an endorsement recently that said that Trump is behind this yes vote, when we all know that this spurred from a local grassroots organization Trump had nothing to do with. So, there's a lot of fear being spread about this, because, a lot of people don't want to lose the concentrated power that they have, and they're willing to go to any length to fool people into thinking that the yes vote would be bad for them. And I just think that's very unfortunate.
And it's interesting. Sometimes people may like the things that we say, but then they say, well, you're politicians too, and you're just saying this. And I would encourage people, like, just kind of think about it. Who's been the biggest spokesperson against this effort? And this effort is basically saying what you and I have said tonight, that we should have less out of town influence and less party bosses having influence. So who's been arguably the biggest spokesperson against this? Well, it just happens to be the county chairman of a political party from out of town. Like, so it proves our point. Like, we don't even need to make a big argument. It's like, just anybody watching this video, just think about, like, who have been the big spokespeople against it. So, like, that's one. And then another thing is, there have been some really sharp looking mailers, some political mailers that have come out, and political mailers are expensive. I'm not sure if people watching this realize, like, when you run for office, it's tough because you have to ask people that you really like, can you donate some money to my campaign? It's a really awkward situation for candidates. But one of the things we have to raise money for are mailers, and they're really expensive to mail them to every registered voter. And what you look, I won't even answer the question. You look at the return address on the political mailers that you've been receiving for vote no, and you may even have one in front of you right now. If you lift it up, I wish I had one now, but you would, like, look at it and you say, hey, it's not Atlantic City, it's not New Jersey, it's not the region, it's some District of Columbia super PAC that's pushing this.
Crazy.
And it proves the point of why there needs to be a move away from that kind of influence and a move towards the people here, and the hard-earned money that people would contribute to a candidate like you, Bruce, or myself in a campaign, that should have more of an impact, because we're looking locally. So those 2 points, I think, if you don't believe a word we're saying, you just ask yourself, who's the biggest surrogate? Do they live in Atlantic City? And where are these mailers coming from that are pushing the no vote? Are they coming from Atlantic City organizations, Atlantic City super PACs, or are they coming from out of town PACs?
You have to ask yourself, right? Why would a super PAC for Washington, D.C. have interest in this election? Like, what would be the reason? If you had to say, I mean, my answer would be a contract. It would be money. It's all about money to them. They don't care about our day-to-day issues. They don't care about crime in Atlantic City. They care about some contract that they may have. And they know that keeping this form of elections helps, enable that particular financial gain. And that's very unfortunate that we allow all these entities to just infiltrate Atlantic City and take, while poverty and things of that nature just continue to rise. At some point, that has to shift.
And one of the arguments that I've heard when talking to people and telling them about this great opportunity we have to vote yes and go nonpartisan, one of the arguments a few people have said to me, well, Jesse, doesn't that charge the taxpayers more money to have this extra election in May? And I remember, like, the first time I heard that, I didn't really have a particularly good answer for it. And I was kind of caught off guard. And so I looked into it, and there's one of two possibilities, and I'm still waiting for the research to say this definitively. Option A is that it actually saves us money, because as you know, like, we vote resolutions to pay for election costs in the city under the current system, June and November, because there's a local election that's part of it. And so one kind of angle on the research suggests that if there's not a local race in June or November, we will no longer have to pay for the primary and general costs. Now, I wish I had that definitive, but they don't. So that's one option. But the other option would be, if that's not the case, and we're still paying for the general, we're still paying for the primary, and then we're going to pay for the May election, the cost is roughly $34,000. And when I thought about that, I was like, a dollar per resident. Not that we want anybody to pay any more than they're paying, but to put it in this context, if you could strip away that level of outside influence we were talking about, if you could strip away the federal issues and the state and the county and just focus on the fact that, like, my lights have been off for over a year in my neighborhood and they won't get fixed, and there seems to be this whole, like, non-accountability culture that's been created with this partisan elections, if I could change that and take more control as a resident for $1, that would be one of the best deals I've ever had, like on spending $1. Seriously, you
Yeah,
can't even get
yeah,
on the
yeah.
jitney for $1, right? You can't even get half a jitney ride for $1 these days. It'd be $1 in order to get that control of that locally. And when you put it in those terms, I mean, I think that's amazing.
Yeah. It dispels a lot of myths out there too about $100,000, right? I mean, I think that's just a number they pulled out of the sky,
Or if they add all 3 elections.
yeah, yeah, I guess. But they were saying per election. So, so like you said, you broke it down perfectly. It's not, there's a lot of false information out there. So I think it's great that you organized this discussion tonight.
Cool. No, it's good. And actually, I want to give you a shout out for even having this conversation, because I mean, I think it shows a lot that it's neat to be able to talk to you about issues and about this ballot question in particular. And I'm convinced if we went nonpartisan, you would see a lot more of that people talking to one another. And like, we're both on the younger side. I mean, we kind of represent more the younger leadership on council. But it's important to, we're small, even though we're big, and there's so few people that are engaged. Like, we need to like or not like one another based on like where our positions are on real issues, and not on these perceived battles that people are fighting in DC and in Trenton that really have very little to do with what's in our backyard. So I mean, this has been a lot of fun, and hey, whatever closing thoughts you have, go for it.
Yeah, I just want to drive home the point that this is not the same question that it was 2 years ago. This does not change the government. You hear that a lot. This is a change of government. This is not a change of government. It is a change in the form of election for Atlantic City. And it's people over politics. So you want to have candidates come to you, not a party boss for a Republican line or Democrat line. You want them to come to you for their vote. You want them to knock on your door and actually give you valuable solutions to the everyday problems that you are seeing, because we all live through it. We all see it. And we want people to make decisions on the dais and not feel like they owe somebody anything. So they can't vote a certain way. They were on this team, or my party doesn't believe in this. No, Atlantic City is very unique. We all know that. It's unique to the region. It's unique to the state. Our elections need to be about us. We need to focus on Atlantic City issues only. That way we can actually sit down, like you said, and have normal people have a regular conversation about how to get things done and actually move forward, with moving forward with initiatives to accomplish that, and not get caught up in what's going on in DC or what's going on in Trenton. Atlantic City, again, it's way too important to allow someone from Galloway dictate who you vote for in a ballot or have so much influence. We need to put that power back into the hands of the people, because we are the ones that live here. We are the ones that pay taxes here. We are the ones that have businesses here. And we are the ones that raise families here, most importantly. And it's all about those things. It's about protecting your family, making sure that you can leave your home and walk Atlantic Avenue. We want to make sure that the quality of life is where it needs to be. And the best start to that, in my opinion, if we can change any system, it would be the political system. It's very toxic. It's very unproductive right now, and we need to change it. And I think this is a great start. I want to give kudos to the organization who went out and got this process started, because I had no idea about, being able to change the form of election, to be honest with you. So I was actually a little hesitant, to be honest, because I thought it was similar to the previous one. But when I did my research, I found out that it wasn't that. And I think a lot of people have that perception of it, and I want to put that to bed. It is not a change of government. You will still have a mayor. You will still have your council people. It would just remove party politics from Atlantic City politics in elections. And I think that's very important that we do that.
Cool. And we're gonna, on Tuesday or maybe this weekend, depending on when people watch this, we got to get out there and vote yes.
We encourage you all to vote yes. Obviously, it's your choice, and no hard feelings. Atlantic City is so small. We all know each other. So at the end of the day, we're gonna all have to sit down, whether this goes yes or no, and still fix Atlantic City, right? I know that you and I aren't going to hold a grudge with anyone. So I just hope that we could all, sit down regardless of what happens, to move this city forward, because at the end of the day, that's what's most important. We just strongly believe that this is a better system politically for Atlantic City.
Very well said. Hope everybody has a good one.
All right. Have a good night.